MVP, boring. Rookie of the year, boring. Fan of the year, rigged. Today, we're talking about the most controversial award in the NFL. What they did to change the award in 2024 and who's going to be taking Comeback Player of the Year home in February and why. Star players suffered season-ending injuries last year at an alarming rate. You got hurt. You got hurt. You got hurt. You all got hurt! And it sucked. Oddly, injuries were actually down in the NFL in 2023, with ACL tears seeing a 24% decrease from 2022. It does make the comebacks of Rodgers, Cousins, Burrow, Chubb, Daniel Jones, J.K. Dobbins, Deshaun Watson, and I guess Russell Wilson, who is still trying to come back from the Broncos, all that more intriguing. Comeback Player of the Year isn't an award you want to lose because there's too much competition. Now, the 2023 NFL honors delivered an unexpected twist when Joe Flacco clinched the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award over the widely favored Damar Hamlin, proving once and for all that being a good quarterback for the Browns is more difficult than coming back from death. Flacco's midseason arrival to the Browns and their road to the playoffs was undeniably impressive, and apparently the voters found a 38-year-old QB slinging tuds more impressive than Hamlin rising like Lazarus. And playing snaps for the Bills months after suffering cardiac arrest in front of the eyes of the world. Now, Hamlin's unexpected snub ignited a pivotal change in the NFL's approach to Comeback Player of the Year. The Associated Press has now sharpened the criteria, specifying that the award should honor a player who has overcome significant injury or illness. And no, playing for the Jets are not considered an illness. AP NFL senior writer Rob Madee wrote this: "The spirit of the AP Comeback Player of the Year award is to honor a player who has demonstrated resilience in the face of adversity by overcoming illness, physical injury, or other circumstances that led him to miss playing time the previous season." The way it should be. Now, the shift would be a departure from some recent trends where players like Joe Flacco and Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith were celebrated for rebounding from periods of underperformance or inactivity to deliver unlikely breakout seasons. Flacco came back from the idea that everyone thought he was washed. Geno, of course, battled literacy.
They wrote me off. I ain't right back, though. That's the problem. I ain't right back. Let's go.
Which makes me think there should be an additional award called "You Thought I Was Washed, But I Ain't, Bitches" award. Comeback Player of the Year should go to guys who tore their ACL or their LCL or their LOL or whatever. As we look ahead to the 2024 season, the leading contenders for the coveted award are New York Jets QB Aaron Rodgers and Bengals QB Joe Burrow. Both entered last season with high hopes, and Rodgers probably just high, only to have what should have been promising seasons cut short by devastating injuries, Rodgers especially. As we all remember, he tore his Achilles during the national anthem, which is exactly what Colin Kaepernick wanted. Are you happy, Colin? Are you fucking happy, Colin? Now, Rodgers, with odds as short as plus 125, is the favorite. His offseason move to the Jets in 2023 got people thinking their playoff drought was over. At the very least, no. 4 plays into the season, the Jets remained the Jets. Now, Rodgers is 40 years old and a full 3 seasons removed from his 4th MVP award in 2021. And to be honest, I think we're fooling ourselves if we expect Rodgers to hit the field for his first long-term action since 2022 and come out guns a-blazing. Rodgers even missed Jets offseason activities because of travel conflict when he was in Egypt, where he was presumably trying to figure out what kind of aliens built the pyramids and how much ayahuasca he would have to take to be able to have sex with those aliens. I'm also worried about whether Rodgers really has gotten all the way back from his Achilles tear, because we just don't know how quarterbacks do after that injury. I did an entire video about that. Aaron tried to tease us with a same-year Achilles return last season. That potential return seemed a little performative, like he was edging Jets fans for months. But as we know, Aaron Rodgers totally doesn't watch porn.
Thankfully, I don't watch porn. I've never been into any weird kinky stuff.
And Jets fans haven't come since Super Bowl III. Now, I think he's close to a lock for Comeback Player of the Year if he can break the Jets' NFL's longest playoff drought and get them back into the postseason for the first time since 2010. I believe the NFL would prefer to give Rodgers Comeback Player of the Year instead of another MVP. Also, Nathaniel Hackett, that's always got to be considered. His mere presence on the sideline must always be considered.
I kind of live by saying if you ain't got no haters, you ain't popping.
Aaron Rodgers got hurt because the Jets line fucking sucked. We know that, but he was pressured and sacked in 4 snaps. A huge reason he was hurt. Now, they've retooled it significantly, so Rodgers better pray to those Egyptian aliens it's fixed. I do believe Rodgers can outperform Joe Flacco, who was a bit of a turnover machine with Breece Hall behind him, Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams, good health pending to throw to. Pew, 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 pew. Joe Burrow's sitting at plus 250. Standing as a formidable contender to Rodgers in terms of coming on backs. Since the inception of the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award in 1998, it's actually way older than that, but they stopped giving it after a few years. Only Chad Pennington has won it twice, and he did so with just 1 season separating his victories. Joe Burrow, who previously won in 2021 after he tore his knee his rookie year, could join the exclusive club. Burrow tore a ligament in his wrist during the Bengals' Week 11 game against the Ravens, shutting down his season and giving way to a surprisingly efficient stretch from his backup QB, Jake Browning, who is back on a 2-year deal. Now, before Burrow injured his wrist, he was fighting through a nagging calf injury, which to me really hindered his and the Bengals' offense's production early in the season. We forget the Browns' defense held Joey B to 85 passing yards and 14 completions week 1. Here's what I like about Joe Burrow and his chances to win the award. We've seen him thrive in the Zach Taylor system already. He knows it like the back of his hand. Rodgers may know the system in New York because he is the system, but he's got to learn with his players on the field. And we saw those growing pains with Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs in Rodgers' final season in Green Bay. Big Kirko has to learn the new system and develop chemistry in Atlanta. Burrow has peak chemistry with the top targets on that offense, and T. Higgins is playing for his next contract. You could also make the very compelling case that Burrow is only coming back from a wrist injury and not an Achilles tear. Again, Rodgers,
I don't watch porn.
so his wrists have very little wear and tear.
Very good wrist action.
While I think the voters will factor a degree of difficulty into their decision making, Burrow has got the leg up, no pun intended, on Rodgers because it's simply a less devastating injury to return from. But once again, I'm no longer a licensed medical doctor. You can thank the State Medical Board of California for that. And Texas, and Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, New Mexico. Okay, all of the fucking West. Now, speaking of the West, Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson is another intriguing candidate with plus 700 odds. Typically, this award goes to a veteran player, but Richardson, entering his sophomore season, lost so much of what looked like a promising rookie year that he's got to be considered. Drafted 4th overall in 2023, Richardson quickly showcased his potential as a passer and a deadly runner before a concussion in week 3 and an AC joint sprain in week 5 ended his season. So when I say deadly runner, I mean it's because his running style is dangerous to himself. Now, despite playing just 4 games, the Colts had to feel like they made a good choice with Richardson. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let that sweet, sweet Gardner Minshew slip through their fingers. If Richardson can remain healthy, he's got a dynamic offense already in place with Johnny Taylor, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and their first-round addition wide receiver Adonai Mitchell.
How to pronounce this name? Adonai.
Now, unlike Dr. Disrespect, I do think the voters will take age into consideration. Richardson is only 22 years old. When you're 22 years old, you can recover from pretty much anything. A fucking piano can fall out of a 4th-story window onto the top of your skull, and you should be able to walk it off with a couple Coors Lights. I'm almost the same age as Aaron Rodgers, and I have a hard time recovering from a girthy poo. In an ideal world, this award should not be going to anyone that was born after 9/11. Just guys who got hurt on 9/11. Right, Aaron? Now, I think there will be an unconscious bias against Richardson. We know how good the other QBs on this list should be. We don't know how good Anthony Richardson should be. If Burrow or Rodgers or Cousins do a few familiar things, we can all yell at our TVs and say, he's back, he's totally back. With Richardson, we simply don't know who he should get back to being. Richardson has a secret weapon, though. Joe Flacco is his backup. If anyone can tell Anthony how to win the award, it's Joe. Look, Anthony, it doesn't matter that Rodgers was clinically dead twice this season. Just throw 6 touchdowns to Jelani Woods, and you got this thing, kid. Let's go to Kirk Cousins at plus 500. Kirk was in the middle of perhaps his best year statistically when his Achilles snapped like a frozen Viking braid, and Minnesota had to trade for Josh Dobbs and give snaps to Nick Mullins. This might sound stupid, but I think the biggest thing that will keep Cousins from winning this award will be the fact that he changed teams during the offseason. My thought is that people, and by people I mean voters, will be too wrapped up in how he looks in his new offense and his relationship with his highly drafted rookie QB, that they'll forget altogether that he actually suffered one of the most devastating injuries an NFL player can have mere months ago. I also think Kirk is eventually going to thrive in Atlanta's offense. He's an excellent point guard, and he's got firepower everywhere he looks on the field. What he loses in terms of talent with receiver Justin Jefferson, he gains with Bijan Robinson in his backfield. But like Rodgers, he's going to be executing that offense for the first time in September. And also like Rodgers, we know that an Achilles rupture is extremely hard to come back from in less than a year's time. We also know that Big Kirko opted for the more conservative approach to surgery and recovery, unlike Rodgers. And for the last time, I'm not legally allowed to practice medicine in the United States after 50 state boards voted on it, but I'm still skeptical of how any man in his upper 30s brushes off that kind of setback. We're going to round this out with some long shots. We've got Russell Wilson at plus 1,200.
Unlimited.
People might bet on Russ to win it at those odds, but those are also the same people that haven't read that the AP is reframing their criteria for the award. Russ did not get hurt in 2023. He hurt me plenty, but he did not actually miss time due to injury. In fact, the Broncos were so afraid that he would get hurt at some point that they wanted to bench his ass so they wouldn't have to keep him on the books any longer than they already had to. If Russ wins Comeback Player of the Year in 2024, I will super glue myself to the stage at the NFL Honors. Naked. That should go without saying. Then we've got 2 Browns on the list. Running back Nick Chubb at plus 1,200 and QB Deshaun Watson at plus 2,000. The idea of Watson getting any sort of award is so thoroughly disgusting and hard to fathom that it kind of makes me think he'll get it. He already got the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history, and as we know, the man does not take no for an answer. Although the most shocking award would be Deshaun Watson winning the Walter Payton Man of the Year honors. Nick Chubb is actually intriguing though. He had damage to his medial capsule, meniscus, and medial collateral ligament repaired in his first surgery. And then a second surgery was needed to repair his ACL. Needing 2 surgeries is not good. That horrific knee injury did happen just 2 games into the 2023 season, so he's had a lot of time to recover. We've also got to keep in mind that Chubb, while I know he's a special player, is also 28 and has around 2,000 carries in his football career since arriving at the University of Georgia back in 2014. Also, the press loves to give the awards to quarterbacks. The last time a running back won was Garrison Hurst in 2001. Adrian Peterson simply got the MVP instead in 2012, rushing for 2,000 yards less than a year after tearing his ACL. Now, we can round out the QB list with Dan Jones, Justin Herbert, and Kyler Murray. The only one on this list that really intrigues me is Danny Dimes. He's gotten so much guff for his contract that it would be really cool to see him ball out in 2024 and get the Giants back into the playoffs. The only problem, it's probably not going to happen. Let's just be honest. Justin Herbert wasn't injured for that long, and I don't think anyone paid enough attention to the 2023 Cardinals to remember that Kyler Murray was injured for most of the season. Plus, he was technically injured in 2022, that season, so it shouldn't really qualify in my opinion. There's a few more dark horses to consider. Edge rusher Jalen Phillips, who had 6.5 sacks last year for the Dolphins in just 8 games. Phillips followed in the horrible footsteps of Rodgers and Cousins and tore his Achilles week 11. I felt his injury signified the end of the Dolphin season. Phillips felt like he was finally hitting his full potential, and then that happened. His position makes an Achilles injury even more complicated, as all great edge rushers have that quick step off the line. He'd probably need like an 18-sack season to get it. I don't even know if he'll be ready to go right away, but he's got an outside chance. A man who just deserves to stay healthy for a full season is J.K. Dobbins. Forget even winning comeback player of the year. My heart goes out to Dobbins, J.K. No. JK was the start of the next sentence. I was starting another sentence. JK missed all of 2021 after tearing everything in his knee in the preseason. It was a fight just to get back to the field. And then last year, after just 8 carries week 1, he tore his Achilles. If he has a 1,000-yard season in Harbaugh's Chargers offense, he deserves the award more than anyone on this list. This will be his 5th season in the NFL, and he's been rehabbing injuries for like 3 of those years solid. He's the most deserving and has a great opportunity because we know Jim Harbaugh wants to run the fuck out of the football in LA. At the end of the day, if I was racing the handicapped, I'd win. Sorry, if I were handicapping this race, Joe Burrow would be my number 1 choice. He's young and returning from the least significant injury of all the quarterbacks. But I think Aaron Rodgers will have to do less to win the award. So I think we'll see Rodgers get it.
I don't watch porn.
Thanks for watching. That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. If you don't subscribe, YouTube, well, they'll put me in prison. And I don't want to go to jail. Not a lot of people know this, but if you don't keep gaining subs, YouTube just makes you disappear.